afternoon, good wherever the hell you are. Happy Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday, Zombie Slayer. Happy Friday, Jesse. Happy Friday, everybody. It is Friday, and that is the bell, which means I am live. It is Friday, September 13th, 2019. I hope you guys are doing well, and I hope everybody is having a great weekend so far, and you guys are kicking it off really well. Hey, Vasco. This is, of course, the Q&A segment that I do every week, Friday. I'm going to be on for probably about an hour today. So, yeah, let's kind of kick things off. I've got a few questions lined up. And, of course, guys, if you want to support this channel, you want to keep this channel going and help it alive, every dollar counts. There's the Patreon. It's found in the link down below. $5 a month for the price of a cup of coffee. You could support this channel and support my endeavors, and it's always appreciated. Happy Friday the 13th. Oh, dude, you got married on Friday the 13th. That's pretty crazy. That's wild, man. Yeah, so let's kind of just dive right in. We've got a few comments and questions already. What are 3 books you'd like to see Donny Cates write if he ever jumped ship to DC? My first choice would probably be I'd love to see Donny Cates do Constantine. I think he'd be a really cool and interesting Constantine writer. He definitely strikes me as the type of guy that he's branched out so much and he does so many different things that Constantine is really right up there and right up his alley. He could do something with Martian Manhunter. I think he would be a great Martian Manhunter writer. We've seen what he's done with Venom. Maybe he could do something similar with Martian Manhunter. I would love to see that. And my last choice, you know what? Let's go a little bit wild. I would like to see him do Booster Gold. I don't think Booster Gold gets enough love in today's DC Comics pantheon, and I'm a huge Booster Gold fan. And, you know, he can be a bit of a dick, and I think he would be really, really cool if somebody could do something really awesome with him. Let's see. What is the other one I have? All right, Parker Luckenbach. Have you seen Ready or Not yet? It's a dark comedy, gorehound slasher, intersected with Agatha Christie's, and Then There Were None. Go in blind. The theatrical run is ending, so it'll be on digital and Blu-ray soon. Is that the film where the chick is getting married and she is basically trapped in the house with like a whole bunch of really crazy like right-wing gun nuts or something like that? Is that what that movie is? That wasn't the one that got canceled, right? There was one that it made huge news a few weeks ago that ended up getting pulled from like everything. That it was going to have a theatrical run, but they decided last minute, Blumhouse, to kind of not put it in theaters for whatever reason that is. Yeah. Kingsley99 asks, have you ever read any Judge Dredd 2000 AD comics in English? And he is a big... I'm English, and he is a big pop culture icon over here. If you have not read any, do you have any interest in doing so? Big fan, by the way. Been watching your videos since about 2013. You helped me a lot getting into comics. Much love, brother. Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks, Kingsley. I have not read. I'll be honest with you. I haven't read any Judge Dredd, like any at all. I have no knowledge of Judge Dredd other than like the Stallone movie and the Carl Urban movie, which I love the Carl Urban film. Damn shame we didn't get a sequel out of that. Hey, Matt. Damn shame we didn't get a sequel out of that Carl Urban Judge Dredd film. He was perfect for what seemed like to be Judge Dredd and everything that I've read. So it's a damn shame. It's a damn shame. And I'm sure Urban would have loved to have come back to do more. Hell, the guy's attached to like so many different geek properties when you think about it. It's insane. If you look at his catalog, it's crazy. He was on Lord of the Rings. He did Riddick. He did Judge Dredd. He did The Boys, which is probably my favorite TV series this year. So it's really cool to see just somebody that is passionate about comics and about the medium as a whole. That he's attached to so many different shows. What was that TV show? It was short-lived on Fox that he did. I think it was like with Michael Ealy. It was Almost Human. He did Almost Human, which Almost Human was not bad. It was a short-lived like one-season show. It was set in the future and involved cyborgs and stuff like that. But it's a damn shame. Damn shame. A lot of stuff on Fox gets canceled, unfortunately. Shay Smithers says, I've been really enjoying your series on best comics for certain writers lately. Are there still some more writers whose comics you plan on talking about? Yes, Shay. I have quite a few actually. I have I have quite a few that I've had a passing interest in. Mainly, it is. I'm trying to think. I'm gonna do Jeff Johns soon. I want to do. I'm basically covering the biggest of the big. I'm doing Jeff Lemire next week for sure. Let's see. Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? Yeah, those are the ones that come to my mind, like right up front. I'm gonna be covering Jeff Johns eventually, and I'm gonna be covering Jeff Lemire next week. I'm trying to do like at least one or two a week to see how that works out. You know, XD Sion. Hold on, I could actually highlight. I always forget this stuff. XD Sion. Do you like Family Guy? I liked. Okay, this is stereotypical for people to say. I realize that, but I liked early Family Guy. Early Family Guy was really creative, and it was really wild. I think it kind of lost steam for me, or it just lost its effectiveness for me as the years went on. I don't know what it is, but I dug the early years of Family Guy, man. Some of that stuff was really, really offensive, but it was really brilliantly written, and it was ahead of its time. I think Family Guy got canceled. What was it, like twice? Something like that. It got canceled and then brought back twice. Family Guy's a product of before, like we got into streaming and stuff like that. People bought the DVDs. Family Guy really blew up because people were buying the DVDs and the Blu-rays that were coming out, and it just caught on like wildfire. And it reignited Fox's interest in bringing it back, and now it's like crazy. Now Seth MacFarlane has like 4 TV shows on Fox every Sunday night, and it's wild. It's wild. It's wild. I know they ended up canceling the Cleveland show, which I actually didn't hate the Cleveland show. I thought it was just okay, but it just kind of felt like it was more of the same. Really, it did. But other than that, no. I'm not a crazy fan of Family Guy right now. I like the classics more. E.L. Denver. I always liked American Dad more than Family Guy. Yeah, me too. Me too. I think what's happened is that American Dad, for me, has kind of taken the spot of Family Guy, where I'll watch it more than I will Family Guy. Same thing with Bob's Burgers. I love Bob's Burgers. It's probably one of my favorite shows going on right now on Fox, and it's always a treat when I can when I can fire up the old TV and actually find time to sit down and watch a couple episodes of Bob's Burgers on Hulu or something like that. So that was The Hunt. Ready or Not is about a deadly game of hide and seek. Okay, I'm not familiar with that one then. The Hunt was the one, right? The Hunt was the film that it got pulled from every single friggin' theater before it even came out. Like, for whatever reason it was, Blumhouse said, yeah, we're not going to air this. We're not going to put it out in theaters. Nobody's really going to really want to see this, and we don't want to offend anybody. So the last minute they decided, yeah, we're not gonna go ahead and do anything with this. Damn shame. Damn shame. I like the premise of it, and the trailer looked really wild. Vasco. Now that I have watched the Dark Crystal series, I can watch this live. How was the Dark Crystal series? I am tempted to watch it, but I've never seen the original film, unfortunately. So I'm like 50-50 if I should sit down and watch it, or 50-50 if I shouldn't. I know I'll probably get a lot more out of it because this is a prequel, if I'm not mistaken, to the original Dark Crystal film that was, man, when did Dark Crystal first came out? Like the late 80s, early 80s, something like that? And they haven't done anything with it since then. So it's kind of interesting to see that Netflix is taking a gamble on this series. I've heard the special effects are beautiful on that show, and I'm really curious to see how they've done it. I'm a big fan of puppeteering, and I'm a big fan of the Jim Henson Company. And if you look at what's interesting about the Jim Henson Company is that if you look at all the different properties that are out there, like Jim Henson wise, everything is just spread out. It's all spread out across different platforms. You've got the Muppets, which is owned by Disney, and they just announced that they had originally planned to like bring back the Muppet Show and do it on Disney Plus, but they decided to pull the plug on that for whatever reason. Who knows? Maybe they just couldn't make it work. That happens sometimes. But I always wanted to see like a much more updated modern times Muppet show. You know, you could even have more modern guests on. I think it'd be pretty fun. And they could, I think the Muppet Show was really satirical for its time, and I think that it would be really cool to see what a Muppet Show would be like in 2019 with everything that we have to deal with and everything that we're going on with that's going on right now. I think they'd have a lot of material to cover. Dark Crystal was 1982. Holy crap, it was that old. I didn't know that. Damn. Hi, Lewis. Any idea if the Ultimate Spider-Man Ultimate Collection will be completely collected? There are only 7 volumes out so far. I have not heard any of that. I haven't heard if it's going to be collected, if it's going to be dropped, or what's the deal with the Ultimate Spider-Man Ultimate Collection. I would think that with Miles' popularity skyrocketing over the last few years, especially considering with the film Into the Spider-Verse, I would think that Miles, anything that they would put out with Miles, they would want to keep it in print as much as possible, and because it would sell. That would be my mindset of it. But hey, you know what? I don't work for Marvel. I don't really know the guys that work at Marvel, so I really can't say, unfortunately. But it kind of sucks that that stuff, if it doesn't get finished. Vasco says it was good. If you watch the movie, you would be more familiar with the concepts, the world, and you would get more of the little details. But if you didn't watch the movie, you'll not be confused. Cool. That's really good. All I've heard is that it's like the puppet version of Game of Thrones, where they are not messing around, and it has a lot of really mature and adult themes. And I respect that a lot. That's one of the things that I really respected about the 70s and the 80s and like my time period, like the 90s and early 2000s, where they like films were not afraid to talk down to kids. It was for the longest time, and I think there is still that stigma that there's the stigma that kids can't handle mature themes, that they can't handle adult stuff, which is why I personally think that you got to give kids more credit than that. They are very self-aware if you just explain it to them in the right way. I work with kids. I work with special needs kids, so I'm aware of this. Um, take for example the first 10 minutes of Up. The first 10 minutes of Up is one of the most brilliant things Pixar has ever done. Beautifully shot, incredibly well animated, and it just rips your heart out because you're seeing the life of these two couples, of these two people who they are deeply and madly in love with each other. And unfortunately, one of them ends up passing away due to old age, due to sickness. You know, they can't have kids. And it's a beautifully shot film. First 10 minutes were gorgeous. And Pixar, that was Pixar for me back in its heyday. That was when Pixar was just they could not miss a beat. I didn't care for Toy Story 4 and the last few Pixar outings outside of Inside Out. I was like, okay, didn't really love it. Could pass or leave it. But I think we need to. I think also the stigma of animation as a whole, where there are certain adults, and I think a lot of it is also the baby boomers, where there's that stigma that, oh, it's cartoons. Cartoons are meant for kids. It's child stuff. Why does it have to be this serious and all this other stuff? When animation is just another art form. It's just another way of expressing yourself. It's another way of creating wonderful stories. And in some ways, animation is more work than a traditional film. When you think about all the process that goes through with it, the scripting, the rigging, the detail, it's just insane. I urge you guys to, if you ever get a chance, watch the making of Finding Dory. The octopus in Finding Dory is the hardest creature that Pixar has ever done in terms of how they had to rig it, in terms of how it had to look. It was a complete pain in the ass for them. So it's beautiful stuff, man. Yeah, it's beautiful stuff. El Denver, yeah. Bambi's mother is shot and killed at the beginning of the film. Like that's no small thing. Like for a lot of kids, they remember that moment. Okay, so we got a few more. Have you heard the news that Frank Miller's returning to writing Batman? What do you think? Oh, good God, no. Look, I loved Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns. I was a huge Frank Miller junkie. I will go to bat for Frank Miller for his 80s comics, for 300, for his Daredevil run, for his Batman stuff. I will go to bat 100%, and I will back that man up. However, his recent output, oh boy, his recent output has not been the best. And quite frankly, I don't want to see him write anything recent, to be honest. Just not a fan. Not a fan of his more recent stuff. I'm a fan of his 80s. I'm a fan of his 90s work. But the new Frank Miller stuff, I'm good. I'm good. It's a pass for me. Are there any non-US shows you like? Any non-US shows that I like? I would have to say Misfits was really good when it was back on. This was years and years ago. Of course, there's always Sherlock, there's Luther, those kinds of shows. And then if we're talking about anime, I could go on and on and on. There's right now Demon Slayer is fantastic. My Hero Academia is fantastic. And yeah, so there's that. That would probably be the extent of like the non-US shows that I'm enjoying right now. By the way, not comics related, what do you teach? I currently work with students that have a learning disability. I work with the students that they struggle a lot, just basically picking up the basic concepts and the basic materials and the text. And I'm working in an English classroom. It's not bad. It's not bad. The kids are actually pretty good. I like working with the kids. If anybody were to ask me today, though, if they recommend that, if anybody were to come up to me and ask me for my advice, if they wanted to get into teaching, I would probably say just kind of reconsider it simply because of the fact that it's you have to know what you're going in with teaching. You're not going to get rich teaching, like not going to get rich teaching at all. That is not why you get into it, and you have to get in with the mindset that also it's going to be changing constantly. Teaching is a thing that one month the district wants you to do one thing, and then the next month they want you to do another thing. It's kind of a pain. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But as long as you have a heart for it and you really want to do it, then by all means, go for it. It's rewarding in certain areas. And in other areas, it's kind of heartbreaking. It was a tough week. This week in particular was really tough for me that I'm not going to get into details or put anybody's business out there. But it was a really, really tough week in terms of emotional highs and lows teaching-wise. Yeah. So my recommendation for anybody that wants to even consider getting into the profession of teaching is really sit down, find a teacher, find anybody in the profession, and actually ask them what they think about it. Like highs and lows, what did you get out of it, and do you think it's worth it? Because it's tough. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. Teaching is a really, really tough thing to do. You have to somehow be able to engage students that a lot of them, let's be honest, a lot of them really don't want to be there, because once you start getting into the middle school and into the high school area, you really don't want to be there. You just want to be home. You want to get out of the classroom as soon as possible. You want to graduate and you want to move on with your life. And I was that kid. I was that kid that I would sit in the back of the class and I'm like, oh my God, anything that I can do to get out of this classroom. So. Let me see. Oh man, I forgot I scrolled up. It's weird here. It's weird here with that kind of attitude, because in France and Japan, animation is seen as a legitimate art form. Yeah, it is. It's kind of weird here in the United States. Animation still kind of unfortunately has that stigma of it being kind of a kid's thing, whereas in Japan and in Europe and in the UK and it's seen with much more prestige, and it's a lot more respected. Oh, you're an animator. Oh, like what stuff have you done? That type of stuff is seen way, way more in terms of a positive light. Like, oh man, that's really cool that you're an animator. Unfortunately, here in the United States, still seeing as kid stuff. Despite the fact that Pixar, every year they put out like a film, it's huge. It does extremely well. I think over here, I think in the next few years, we're going to see just a rise, a continual rise in terms of animation and a continual rise in an understanding of, hey, you can tell animated stories and they can have, yeah, you can direct them towards kids, but they can have mature themes and they can be very well produced. I mean, hell, Into the Spider-Verse for me is one of the best animated films of all time. I loved Into the Spider-Verse, and that is a film that it does not talk down to kids. It has a lot of good messages. Quite a few people that are around Miles die in that film. Like that, it's a heavy film. It gets really emotional at certain points, and I love that film. I've seen it more times at this point than I can count. As far as Batman goes, is Frank Miller a one-hit wonder? Wow. Well, technically, he's not a one-hit wonder because he did do Year One and he did do Dark Knight Returns. I think outside of those two books, though, he really hasn't produced anything in the Batman mythos of value over the last few years. I think it's just been misses. He just the guy for whatever reason the guy climbed into a bottle allegedly or whatever it was, and he just has not been the same since. So. Even Frank Miller's art seems to have gotten worse over the years. Yeah, it's I don't know what the deal is, man. I don't know what his deal is. I think I read somewhere he was really sick for a while. I don't know if that's true or not, but there was a point where Frank Miller was looking like straight up Freddy Krueger. It was really bad. He was really frail. Really, he did not look good. It looked rough, and I was genuinely really concerned for the guy's health. I was like, "Holy crap, dude, you look bad." His Sin City stuff was top notch. Yeah, Sin City was good. Sin City was very good. It was a good crime noir story. Vasco, since he's in the thumbnail, what's the question comics? What question comics would you recommend? You know what? I kind of put the question in there just to kind of have like a picture of a thumbnail. I am not that well versed in the question, which actually means that I should probably do a video on him pretty soon, because what that'll mean is that it'll actually make me focus and actually sit down and read some question comics. That is one of the areas that I just don't have too much knowledge in, unfortunately. I know Renee Montoya for a while was the question. Outside of that, dude, my knowledge of him is very, very limited. In Portugal, we are so backwards that we have trouble considering cinema an art form. Wow! Really? You guys are that far back over there. Holy crap. You guys don't see cinema as an art form in Portugal. I didn't even know that. That's wild, dude. What are your thoughts on Batman Year One by Frank Miller? I love Batman Year One. Wait, yeah. I was thinking about something else. Yeah, I love Batman Year One. Batman Year One is to me the definitive Batman origin. He just absolutely nails the Batman origin, and the art by David Mazzucchelli it's beautiful. Oh, Batman Year One is a beautifully drawn book, and it's obvious where Nolan got his inspiration for Batman Begins, because he pulled a lot of that stuff from Batman Year One. Um, but we're really talking a lot about Frank Miller. I just think it's a damn shame that Frank Miller just so much potential. The guy, he was hot in the 70s. He was hot in the 80s. He was just at the top of the mountain in terms of comics. And then for whatever reason, he has just fallen off for the last few years. That would be, okay, to put it in perspective, it would be like Donny Cates right now, who is probably the best, like the hottest writer in the game right now. It would be like Donny Cates. He finishes up Absolute Carnage and he just falls apart after that. He has dud after dud after dud after that. That is the level that Frank Miller was working at back in the day, where he could do absolutely no wrong in the eyes of a lot of comic book fans. I love his Daredevil stuff. His Daredevil stuff is classic. Man Without Fear, Born Again, it's great material that anybody would love to have on their catalog. We'll call him a two-hit wonder. Year One of The Dark Knight Returns. That's pretty good. The Claremont Miller Wolverine was great. Yes, it was. Any idea if Miller's Superman Year One stuff is any good? I've heard mixed things. I'm not a fan. Like I said, I'm not a fan of Frank Miller's writing today, and I'm not a fan of John Romita Jr.'s art today. So that's like a 1-2 punch of for me. So. What are some comic writers and artists you feel are underappreciated? Some comic writers and artists that I feel are underappreciated. Um, David Walker. David Walker, who's doing Bitterroot, he did Shaft, he's done a whole bunch of stuff. I really think he doesn't get enough love as he should. I think he's one of the best underappreciated writers in the game right now, and I think he's just getting better as the years goes on. As the year goes on, as the years go on, I'm really looking forward to seeing what other work he's done. If you guys haven't read Bitterroot, I recommend you do check it out. It's actually pretty cool. I think it got auctioned off for Legendary Pictures. I always I always recommend you guys check that one out. As far as artist, man, I don't know. I really don't know because I think a lot of you know what? No, I take it back. You know who's the artist for Black Sad? Because that the art in Black Sad is astoundingly good. I love the art in Black Sad. It's incredibly well done. It's beautiful. Like it's man. I like Superman Year One. Okay. The comic book store I go to is having an 80% off on all back issues. Any recommended books? I want to get into X-Men, but I don't know too many characters. Man, I always tell everybody the same thing when they want to start with X-Men. I say start with Uncanny X-Force. That's my favorite X-Men story. Of course, then you can always start with the classic Chris Claremont stuff. If you want to get even to more modern times, you can pick up the stuff that Hickman is doing right now. That would be considered back issues because he's got 8 issues of it out because he's double shipping. So yeah, so it's all good, man. I would recommend you definitely start with those if you have a passing interest in the X-Men, especially Uncanny X-Force. Uncanny X-Force is my favorite X-Men run of all time. It's so good. It's brilliant. I'm in Killer. What's your opinion on Fear Agent comic? Because I want to read it, but I'm a little hesitant about it. I talked about Fear Agent in yesterday's video that went up last night, highlighting Rick Remender's best comics. I love Fear Agent. I think Fear Agent is one of Rick Remender's best works, and it's really underappreciated. Kind of sad. Like, it's a really, really sad book when you get down to the nitty-gritty of it. It's brilliantly well-paced. The art by Jerome Pena and Tony Moore is incredibly well done. It's, oh my gosh, just overall great stuff. If you have not read Fear Agent, I highly recommend you do check that one out, my friend. It's worth the buy, 110%. You will not be disappointed with Fear Agent. It's that good. Just know what you're getting into. Heath Houston, the main character, he's not exactly the most likable main characters at the start of the story. He's a bit of a drunk, and the ship he's flying in is a bit of a hoopty, and he's not very likable. Get the Year One absolutes. Color is whack on the hardcover. You know what? I take it back. Yeah, I have heard Dennis O'Neil's run on The Question is amazing. I have never read it. I think some of those trades are even out of print, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not 100% certain on that. But everything that I have heard is that the Dennis O'Neil stuff for The Question is a must buy. Oh no, you stay away from Donny Cates. Man, Donny Cates would really have to mess up really badly in order for him to get to Frank Miller levels. Like, he would have to have a string of really just horrible bad books over the next few years. Speculation. I wonder doing so many Sin City stories sort of ruined Frank Miller in a creative way. I don't know. I really don't know, man. Some people that writing is tough. Like, if you've ever tried your hand at writing, I urge you guys, sit down and write. And I'm not talking about just you write one page or, actually stick with it. Write consistently every day. You are going to sit down and you're going to put out a page or 2 pages or whatever it is, because that's really how that shit gets done. It is tough. It is really tough. And it's also really tough to get out of that mindset in your own head where you're like, man, everything that I'm writing right now is terrible. I really can't write anything. And that is the biggest obstacle for me, who I've dabbled in writing and I keep trying, but I keep hitting a wall every single time where I just go back and read it and I'm just like, this is shit. What am I doing? But there's a famous quote, and I think I believe it's Hemingway. I believe it is. Where Hemingway basically said the first draft of everything is shit. It's complete shit. It's terrible. So it's always that thing where in your mind, how writing works, and it's you have two sides of your brain, right? You have the left and right. So one side is the creative side. The other side is the side that actually goes over, proofreads it, cleans it up, make sure it looks good, that type of stuff. So what ends up happening is that you actually harm yourself writing wise when you're in the middle of writing something and you keep thinking about, oh man, I got to go back and correct it. This didn't sound right. Just write. Just throw it up on the paper and keep going and keep going and keep going. That's how ideally Stephen King gets out 7 pages a day. He writes it out and then he goes back and he edits it and fixes it. That's how the best writers do it. Because if you just keep constantly focusing on this one page that you have written, it's never going to get done and you're going to be stuck there. And that is the biggest problem that I have. El Denver, I wrote a novel. It took forever. Yeah, it takes forever. And your chances are you're not going to get published right away. I have a lot of people that are like, yeah, man, I want to be a writer and all this other stuff. And I'm like, you're probably not going to get published right away. It's a huge, huge numbers game. You got to keep throwing it out there, and you just get better and better the more you do it. Vasco, were the Uncanny Avengers by Rick Remender any good? Yes. I wasn't a fan of Access, which was basically how he ended the event, and it was like the tie-in to that run. I wasn't crazy about that, but I thought it was a pretty solid overall ending. Let's go back a little bit. Holy crap. Okay. Kint has written really good stuff, and nobody talks about him. I am hot and cold with Matt Kint. I love the first few volumes of Mind Management, and then for whatever reason, I just dropped off of it. I always meant to come back to Mind Management and finish it up, but I dropped off of it, and it just never really hooked me after that. I forgot how far. I got pretty far into Mind Management, too, and I thought it was actually pretty good. I read God Country after your review, and I loved it. Awesome. I love hearing that stuff, man. I felt the world building, and it was a bit incomplete, but the central theme of Requiem and Remembrance really came through in Donny Cates' writing. Very well put. I would agree with that. I think God Country also, because of the fact that it was only, what was God Country, like 6, 8 issues? It wasn't really that long. He can only do so much in terms of world building, and on top of that, he's also got the emotional crux of the grandfather, and God Country is pretty dense for what you get, especially in terms of emotions and how well Donny Cates is really able to hit you with just the beats every single step of the way, leading up to that beautiful ending where I just tears coming down my face. Yeah, the art was great. Yeah, the art was spectacular on that. Were the Uncanny Avengers? I already wrote that. Neil Gaiman says that the second draft is basically you trying to give the impression to the reader that you had your entire shit together during the first draft. That's pretty accurate, man. Yeah, that's actually pretty accurate. And Neil Gaiman would know his stuff. I love Gaiman. That's a pretty good way to explain it. Yeah, writers, they'll go over 4 or 5 different passes on their book before it ever hits the stand, and some writers, they'll make it look flawlessly. That's kind of part of the reason why. Yeah, George R.R. Martin, who's writing Game of Thrones, it pisses me off sometimes that he hasn't finished the book series, and chances are, let's be honest, he's probably not going to before he ends up kicking the bucket. He's very particular about his writing. He writes when he feels like it, and who knows if we're getting the last two books in Game of Thrones. He writes, rewrites. He had a better editor within the first, I think, like 3 books, and then he got a new editor. I think it was in book 4, and since then it's gotten a little bit too bloated for my taste. At least that's the excuse that I've heard. I'm not exactly sure what happened as far as his editor. I have an ending for a movie scene or comic, but no beginning. Work your way backwards. Build the world. Lay everything out. Just think about it like that, man. If you're stuck, you have a great ending. Okay, how do your characters get from point A to point B? That's how you got to figure that out. Map it out the best way that you can. You can map it out using different story beats. Okay, I'm gonna have um, this is where my characters start at one point. This is where the characters are going to be in the middle point, and this is where the characters are going to eventually conclude. So what you need to do is you need to fill in the gaps and figure out how the characters are going to get to that point, and have to figure out what are the motivations, what's going to change, what's going to happen in between those big points, and things like that. Uh, that's tough. Yeah, that's tough, man. Brandon Sanderson. Now that's a man who knows how to write reams and reams at a time. Yeah, yeah, he is. Brandon Sanderson, man. I'm reading The Way of Kings right now, and holy shit, man. Brandon Sanderson, he has a way with words, and he has a way with just being able to pull you into his universe. I urge you guys. Okay, I know this is mainly a comic book channel, and we really don't even actually delve too deep into like writing and how to write on Friday nights, but I'm actually enjoying this discussion. I urge you guys, if you have not picked up A Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, it's thick. It's like over 1,100 pages. I'm making my way through it right now. It's the first book in like his Stormlight series, and it's brilliant stuff. Do so immediately. It's great. It's so great. Brandon Sanderson, in terms for me of world building and in terms of characterization, is far, far better than George R. R. Martin right now. That Brandon Sanderson to me is the GOAT. He's the greatest one doing it right now, and his level of creativity right now is insane. In the first few pages, you're gonna read this. You're gonna read Way of Kings, and the prequel series in the first few pages is gonna be a little bit confusing. You're probably not gonna understand what's going on. That's intentional. Once you actually get into the crux of the story and into the first few chapters of Way of Kings, you are going to be hooked. He pulls you in right away, and the universe he builds is insanely well detailed. It's so good. I read Brandon Sanderson's work, and I honestly wish sometimes I'd be like, God damn it, if I could really write and construct just a chapter as good as the stuff that Brandon Sanderson is putting together, I would be happy. Are you going to pick up the new comic by Jeff Lemire called Frogcatcher? If it's Jeff Lemire, I'm going to read it. Love Jeff Lemire's work. I think he's one of the best in the game right now. Is that why George R. R. Martin is taking so long to finish A Song of Ice and Fire? Who knows? I mean, who knows what's going on with him? What is the dude? Like, he's close to his 70s. He's hit the writer jackpot, where basically he doesn't really have to work. You know, he's got that Game of Thrones money. Game of Thrones is making money hand over fist, even after the last season, which a lot of fans were like, wasn't that good? He's still making a lot of money, and he's going to be fine. George R. R. Martin is one of those guys that he is not going to be struggling for cash anytime soon. His kids, or if he has any kids, aren't going to be struggling for cash anytime soon. So is he going to finish it? Impossible to tell. My money is on, sadly, no. He's not. He hasn't even started on the last book. He is still trying to work his way through the sixth book in the series. And, you know, I don't think it's going to happen. Unfortunately, I really don't think it's going to happen. Plus, you know, not to dog on the guy too much. He doesn't exactly look like the epitome of health, exactly, you know? Which is better, Berserk by Kentaro Miura or A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin? Just wondering. That's tough. That's actually really tough. Basically, well, it's still writing. I was going to say basically two different art forms, but you know, I'm going to actually give this, and this may surprise some of you, I'm going to give it to Berserk simply because that prequel series of Berserk, the volumes, I think it's like 4 through 13, where you're getting the entirety of the back catalog, and you're seeing basically everything that led up to the birth of Femto and to Guts losing his arm, and just the relationship between the Band of the Hawk and all. It's all brilliant stuff, and it's incredibly well written, and God damn, is it so good. It really is so good. And then once you get to the birth of Femto, oh my God, it's so messed up. Like, it's, if you guys think if you guys think some of the stuff that happens in Game of Thrones is shocking, Jesus, man, those last few chapters in that arc of Berserk are just it's really stuff that'll just fry your brain. It's yeah, man. Did you watch The Boys on Amazon and did you like it? Yeah. The Boys on Amazon is probably my favorite comic book show this year. It's a breath of fresh air, and I think it's something that the medium needs. For me, at least, the medium was kind of getting a little bit stale. I'm being honest. I love the Marvel films. I'm a Marvel kid at heart. I grew up on Marvel comics. I grew up on DC comics, all that other stuff. But, and that's a big but, I'm getting kind of tired of the Marvel status quo. Endgame was great. I love what they did in Avengers Endgame. I saw Spider-Man Far From Home, and I was like, okay, this is cool. You know, it's kind of a little capper on everything that happened with Endgame. But I'm just getting kind of tired of it. That's why I'm kind of more excited for projects like Joker, and I'm kind of more excited for like some of the other, they're comic book related, but at the same time, they're not in this shared universe type deal. I'm more excited for that stuff. And I'm more excited for like the indie scene, whatever A24 is putting out right now, whatever stuff Blumhouse is putting out, I'm interested in. Brandon Sanderson is God. All hail Brandon Sanderson. He's up there. By the way, George R. R. Martin is dropping by my local comic shop in October. Sweet, man. Get some stuff signed from him. I've heard he's actually not bad to his fans. He's actually a pretty chill guy, and if you ever get the chance to sit down and talk to him, he will really ring your ear and talk about writing all the time. There is a great, I think it's like a panel with George R. R. Martin and Stephen King where they basically sit down and they take questions from the audience and they answer each other's questions and stuff like that. And George R. R. Martin looks at Stephen King and basically says, just how the hell do you write so fast? King just actually had a book that came out over the last few weeks, and I've heard it's actually not bad. The Institute. I want to go ahead and check it out, but I haven't had time to sit down with it. On top of reading everything else that I have to read right now. Did you watch the new Titans season? I have not. I plan to sit down with it. I didn't care for the first season of Titans. Thought it was just okay. Wasn't really something that I was too interested on. You know, Grim Dark Robin really didn't do it for me. But I heard it does get better as it goes along, so I need to sit down with it and check it out. Any other comics with cynical take on superheroes like The Boys? That's tough. A lot of the Mark Millar stuff is kind of a cynical take on and a deconstruction on superheroes. Jupiter's Legacy is a big deconstruction on the idea of superheroes and what they mean in society and how superhero kids would react in a modern day society. So that's a good one. I like Jupiter's Legacy a lot, and I don't think it's a book that gets enough love. Have you read A Clash of Kings from George R. R. Martin? Yes, I have read A Clash of Kings. Clash of Kings was the second book, by the way, for Game of Thrones. It's better than the first book, in my opinion, in terms of pacing and in terms of characterization. My thing is, for Martin, for me, this is just me, in terms of his writing, sometimes the characters can sound a little bit alike. And he gets so wrapped up in the exposition and he gets so wrapped up in describing everything that's going on around, which is good because, you know, it paints a better picture in your head. But he takes it a bit too far at times where he will spend like a paragraph explaining something. And I'm like, this, you didn't need this. Like you didn't need this. Okay. It's too much. It's way too much. I'm an aspiring professional writer, kinda. I learned that the best way to write is write. Don't second guess it too much. Just keep writing. Yep, it's the best way to do it. Best way to do it, Denver. Honestly, is just write, and just get it out there and find a publisher. Find a publisher that takes free. I forgot what the term is. You need to find a publisher that'll take. There's a specific term that I'm blanking on right now. You need to find a publisher that'll take basically free agent books you know. And if you are out there and you want to get into writing and you are looking at getting a agent, just know this: you will never have to pay your agent up front. You shouldn't have to. Any legit agent in terms that is worth their salt, that is going to get you the hookup on certain things, you are not going to pay them up front. Okay, that's not how that works. Chances are, if you do go that route, they're going to screw you over and you're not going to get anything good out of it. I'm talking about agents, not publishing companies. Because publishing companies, they will, depending on how well-known of a writer, publishing companies, they'll sometimes pay you some fee up front with the promise that you will finish your damn book by a certain date, and they expect it to be done by that date. But that's another discussion. Clash of Champions prediction. I don't really have any. I kind of like to go in blind with this type of stuff. So, speaking of Stephen King, Joe Hill is another one of those underrated writers. Yeah, Joe Hill, son of Stephen King, man. Joe Hill, he definitely has inherited his father's talent in terms of writing and in terms of being able to craft a world and in terms of storytelling. And he's a damn good writer. He obviously, to me, has not also picked up his father's bad habit of being able to kind of drop the ball at the last minute in terms of his endings, because I thought the ending for Lock and Key ended brilliantly. And if you've ever checked out his book Horns, I have read Horns. It's actually pretty good. There was a movie that came out a few years ago with Daniel Radcliffe. Not that good, unfortunately. But the book was really, really great, and I always recommend people check that one out. I'm currently reading Lock and Key, and it's blowing my mind away. Yeah, Lock and Key is one of those series, man, that Lock and Key just gets better and better as it goes along. You're gonna have so many different twists and turns with that series, and I'm kind of curious as to what what volume you're on in Lock and Key right now, because it's a story that just keeps building on itself, and it's very much a story where Joe Hill had his mind set on where he was gonna go with that story from the very beginning, and it's obvious because the way he sticks the landing is perfect. He knew what the beats were. Where we talked about this earlier in the chat, where Joe Hill had the beginning mapped out, he had the middle mapped out, and he had the ending mapped out. It was a matter of just getting to those moments, and it's really obvious. That's really obvious when you read Joe Hill's books and when you read his writing. I need to check out his Nos for Atu. NOS. Yeah, it's about vampires basically. I really need to check that one out. I heard it's pretty good. I know there's a TV show. I think it's on Shudder with Zachary Quinto, but I have not seen it. All right, guys. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and call this a little bit earlier simply because I got to get some stuff done. I got to work on some editing, and I got to get out of here. So it's been close to an hour. It's been about 50 minutes. Is Ultimate X-Men by Mark Millar any good? Not a fan. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I know it's been a little bit short. Unfortunately, I got to get out of here because I got stuff to do. So I'm going to say thank you so much for joining me, guys. Be on the lookout for new videos next week. Of course, there's the Patreon down below. I love you guys. If you have not checked it out, please check it out. $5 a month doesn't hurt you too much. It's always appreciated. Or even $1. You know, even $1. I will speak with you soon, and I love you. Have a good night, guys. Bye.